I picked up this car last May at a small local dealership that specifically sells older German enthusiast cars. I test drove it and instantly saw the potential and the plethora of problems. The car was making no boost whatsoever and felt naturally aspirated, so I was able to talk them into a great deal. Now, this sounds like a big risk, but I only did this because I knew what was causing the problem. My previous car was a 1.8. And I also had the same problem. A bad mass airflow sensor will cause the car to go into a limp mode. It won't throw any codes, but it'll be like you're driving a naturally aspirated vehicle. Thankfully, this is a really simple fix and a cheap part to boot. I used this as a way to negotiate and got the car for a steal. The first thing I ordered when I bought this car was a new mass airflow sensor. Once the proper piece was on the car, I learned just how much of a project car this was going to be. While the car wasn't in the best shape, it definitely wasn't in the worst shape either. It pulled strong, handled great, and looked incredible, when you consider the car's 20 years old. The first actual modification I did to this car was installing a boost gauge. I swear by this mod as the first mod I would do to any turbo car, specifically if you're trying to diagnose problems. Boost gauges can tell you what your idle vacuum pressure is to help diagnose vacuum leaks, as well as tell you what boost you're making to see what kind of a limp mode you're in, or if you simply have a boost leak. Especially on old German cars, 1.8Ts and 2.7Ts, a boost gauge is a tremendous asset in diagnosing problems. In other words, it's not just for show. I really did want to enjoy the car stock for a little bit, but that didn't last too long. Since I got the car for such a good deal, I had a lot of extra money left over. I wanted to increase the airflow to the turbo and into the engine, so I ordered a new speed intake, CTS turbo downpipe and high flow cat, and an excess power catback exhaust. Around the same time, I also scheduled a time to custom tune the car with a remote tuner with a company called Motiza. Once all the tubing was put on the car, it sounded better, it performed better, and it was ready for a tune. I threw the tune on the car, and to no avail, I had a misfire at high RPMs. Thankfully, by replacing the spark plugs and the coils, I was able to correct this, and the car was better than ever. This is a relatively light car, and I was making about 300 foot-pounds of torque to the crank, which is a lot for something of this size. This car is basically the definition of chuckable. The extra power was nice, but it made a lot of the motor mounts, specifically the 20-year-old dog bone mount, much more noticeable. I hopped on ECS Tuning and ordered a replacement and put that in. The dog bone mount is the mount that helps the engine stop rotating forward or backward. The engine's going to want to rotate when you're in boost or accelerating and you take your foot off the gas. These bushings get old and worn, which allows for more play in the rotation. It's a really simple fix and something I highly recommend to help you put more power down. Now that the car was performing a little bit better, I wanted to perform some cosmetic restoration. The first thing I did to accomplish this was to restore the headlights and make them clear again. I refinished the plastic trim and I repainted the metal trim. On top of that, I retrofitted a custom carbon fiber front lip. This made the front of the car look a lot more aggressive than it used to. Consequently, I wanted to balance the car out, so I got a carbon fiber rear wing extension. This helps to make the car look balanced like it was supposed to from the factory. It also doesn't affect the aerodynamics of the vehicle too much. The next stop on my journey was to eliminate body roll. This car is very front heavy. Consequently, it likes to understeer in corners. If you have a car that likes to understeer, one of the best things you can do to bias it more towards oversteer and making it more neutral overall is to upgrade the rear sway bar. I put the strongest rear sway bar I could find on this car, and it was made by a company called H&R. This made this car a blast in the corner. Not only did it eliminate body roll, but the car feels very neutral and you can coerce it into oversteer or understeer depending on how you enter the corner. This effect is exaggerated in the snow, which makes it even more fun. Next, I started to notice a little bit of slop in the shifting. This is a 20-year-old gearbox, so unless I completely rebuild it, it will never be perfect again. But I can sure make it a hell of a lot better by installing a CTS Turbo short shifter kit and Diesel Geek bushings. Now my shifts are crisper, cleaner, and a lot shorter. While I was installing these bushings, the car ended up leaving me stranded for a week because I snapped my shift cable end link. This wasn't due to the bushings at all, this was simply due to the fact that it was 20 degrees when I decided to do this. 20-year-old plastic and the cold don't get along too well. The next few weeks, winter wreaked havoc on this vehicle. I split more old vacuum lines than I can count. I've been slowly replacing all the vacuum lines in the car with some red silicone ones I ordered online. Along with this, I replaced the PCV system, which had another massive crack in it. Once this was done, the car was a lot more reliable and the winter, and I've been having an absolute blast in it. That brings me to the end of the year, and once again, I'm reflecting on this car and the time I've had with it. This thing is an absolute joy to drive, and I've got huge plans both for the car and for the channel for this upcoming year. As far as the TT is concerned, I plan on getting an oil catch can, new brakes, rear diffuser, front mount intercooler, and wheels and tires when the season changes. One of the mods I'm most excited for is I'm going to be putting on an E85 tune for this car, because we just got it on pump where I live. I have no idea how that's going to affect the performance of the car, but from everything I've read about E85, it's going to be wild. I also plan on wrapping the car, starting sooner than you might think. You may not even recognize the car by the end of the year. One other big announcement I have is I intend to get a second project car for this channel over the course of the next year. This is going to be a major game changer because it'll let me do larger mods to these cars, since I'll still have a way to get around if one of them torn apart. It opens the doors for me to build engines and put forged internals in them. I could even turbo or engine swap a car. Plus, since I'll be keeping the TT and live in an area in the snow, it opens the possibility for me to get a rear-wheel drive car, or something even more unreliable. There are some really cool cars I have on my list that I really don't see many people building. I also think they provide great contrast to this car and be a great addition to the channel. If anybody's interested in hearing what cars I'm looking at, I'm happy to make a video about it, but you gotta let me know in the comments. I'll likely make an entire series once I've narrowed down the vehicle and go through and buy it. Like I said, this is an open list, so if you have any suggestions for cars you want to see on the channel, let me know. I truly want to say thank you for all the support. I made this channel as a sort of time capsule to chronicle my hobbies and passions as something I could look back on 20 years from now. I could not have imagined the amount of support I would get in such a short time, and that I'd have so many people watching and enjoying my content. So thank you, truly. It's been a great year, and I am very much so looking forward to spending 2022 with you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day.